thank you, Professor, for inviting me here. My dissertation is about like a new vision of auditing apps. So I come to this idea because Auditing Apps is gradually catching professionals' attention in the recent years. So what is an audit app? So audit app are formalized, computerized analytical audit procedure. And Professor Kogan said this is too general, and I'm still working on the definition of this audit app. Basically, it is different from the general audit software, like caseware, like ACL. Those software are too large and complex, so it's a combination of many functions. But audit apps are actually very simple, and they are kind of analytical procedure package. So so you just input your data and you just click, and then you can get your result right away. So it's not much like a user implementation in it. So back to the year 2009, Caseware launched the first marketplace to sell audit apps. So here, this picture is the screenshot of this marketplace, and here this picture shows some sample audit apps. So just give you an idea what audit app could do. So many other companies, such as ClickSense and Teammate, also build some audit-like products, because they do not call it audit app, but it actually do what the audit app do. So, for example, like ClickSense, they create a new product called Create Your Own App. So it allowed the users to create their own dashboard, and it can be reused for new data. And also Teammate, it has a section called Teammate Analytics, yes. So they kind of create many modules to do analytical, to facilitate auditors to do analytic work. So as I said, there is a difference, or actually a benefit of audit apps compared with general audit software. So first benefit is the audit apps are much easier to use. As I said, the auditors do not need to have much IT background to use audit app. It's just quite simple. It's just click, and you can get the result right away. It do not require any programming background, etc. And also, it's very cost-effective. It's usually costs much less than the general audit software. So you can just purchase the audit app you need, and maybe it's just a couple of hundred. But for the general audit software, it usually costs 10,000, etc. And it can be customizable. So because auditors may have their special demand to do analytics, so audit apps can be easily customized to meet their needs. A recent change in standard actually promotes the use of audit apps. So a big challenge of using apps is to actually obtain the accurate data in a usable format, and also in a repeatable way. The challenge is because now many companies are generating and storing their data, but they have their own data format or data model to capture those data. So each company has a different name for the data, but actually the data is the same meaning. So in order to analyze those data, the auditors need to spend a very long time to understand those data, and they need to transform those data to a format that can be used by audit apps. So this process is so time-consuming and very inefficient. Fortunately, in July 2015, AICPA released the full voluntary uniform audit standard. Actually, the original version is released in 2013, and this is kind of an updated version. So this
2 more are coming out this year, pretty soon, maybe 3-4 months.
Okay.
2 more standards. Yeah.
And for in which
the other 2 cycles that are missing now.
Okay, because this one is an updated version. It covers the basic standards, general ledger, order to cash, and procure to pay. Those standards covers the company used data in this business cycle, and because of those data standards, if all those companies and the audit app developer, they follow those standards. So there's auditors not need to understand the data model from each company. So because they have already been standardized. And also, the auditor do not need to transform the data to another format that can be recognized by the audit app, because they are using the same data model. Therefore, the auditors can directly put the data from the company to the audit app. So the audit app can immediately recognize those data formats. Therefore, it's, the auditors can save their time from actually data preparation to actually analyze and interpret the results of the data. So as Alice et al. 2012 said, the audit standards will need not only easily accessible data, but also standard audit applications that can explore those data. Okay.
Can I just make a comment here? Okay. You know, these firms like Caseware that develop these apps, they sell them on their website. They develop their own audit standard, because you have an app, you need to have a standardized data entry to it. So they have to assume the data will be provided to this particular app in a certain way. So these firms are not adopting the AICPA's audit standard. They are developing their own. And that's a problem, because there'll be great social cost to convert. I talked to the people at Caseware and said, well, if the AICPA standard gets adopted, then we will transform our standards.
Yeah.
The other thing is there is an initiative, by the way, led by China, with the International Standards Organization, ISO, to develop audit data standard. So this is, although this is very early in stage, is not Jun's imagination. This is actually a real thing that eventually will happen. But never underestimate how long it takes for things to happen.
What is the AICPA basing it on?
The AICPA, what they did, they pulled together the big 4 IT auditors, and they said, well, if I'm going to do a purchase to pay audit, this is the data I need. And they 4 talked together, and
right.
I'm Imagineered. Same thing with XBRL. I argued that you should go and pick up financial statements, and based on what they have, write a computer program, bring them some criminality.
Right.
No, they did XBRL taxonomy basically by hand and by opinion. And of course, you can see the results,
yeah.
which makes it much more difficult to do. The taxonomy in XBRL is 15,000 accounts. So the chart of accounts that they imagine is very, very large. Same thing here in this audit data standard. It's not that large, but it's all Imagineered.
Right.
So
I know that one study we did, one of the paper we wrote, where it didn't apply too much to what it was being used. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, the audit app is now catching the professionals' attention, but there are still many challenges of using it. One of the biggest challenge is that because the audit app is new to auditors, they do not have much idea about how can they use it, how can they use them. So they do not know which audit app they should use and where to use them. Some literature have already discussed the related topic. For example, Schneider et al. Talk about that the inherent complexity of technology may impact the auditors in performing data analytics tasks. And also, Brown-Liebert et al. Also raised this question that choosing appropriate tools will be important to perform useful analytics. So all these papers raise the same question. Like, we need to provide guidance for the auditors to help them use audit apps, to help them to choose the appropriate app to use and to tell them where to use those audit apps. But however, till now, no guidance has been released regarding the use of apps in the current audit procedure. Because if we do not have this such guidance, first the auditors may not take full advantage of audit app. So they do not have a general picture of analytics and audit app. So they may only use a limited number of apps. They may only analyze the partial data. And also, those app developers may have low demand of audit app because auditors do not want to use them. So they do not. So the developers do not have the motivation to create more apps. And also, the developers do not know the demand of auditors, like which audit app they want to use. So following this discussion, this dissertation aims to understand the use of app in current audit procedure and provide app use and design guidance for the auditors. Just want to get a whole picture of this audit app and audit analytics. I visualize the whole process of audit data analytics, covering the planning stage, audit app selection stage, and result analysis stage. So this whole process starts with risk assessment. After assess the client risk, the auditors can use their professional judgment to select those audit assertions that they want to use data analytics to test. And then they put their selections to this audit planning system. This system can automatically select apps that can test these audit assertions. Although I put audit app here, I can also note that any other data analytics techniques can be put here. App is just an example. And also for those assertions that cannot use audit apps to test, the system also generates some traditional approach for those assertions. And the system also recommends the frequency of running those apps based on the result of risk assessment. Okay, so after get the audit plan for the audit data analytics, here what we want to know, what the auditor want to do is to collect the useful and relevant audit data to analyze them. So those data can come from three three parts. The first part is the company's data, which can be standardized by the audit data standard. And also some other companies' data, such as like the videos from the record the inventory, or the telephone calls from customers. All those other information can also be used to facilitate data analytics. Also, as Professor just said, many data from outside the company, such as the news, the social media, and like analytics report, etc., can also be used to use to facilitate analytics. So auditors can collect all those relevant and useful information. And then after the auditors getting those data, the next step is to select appropriate audit app to use. Because now Caseware has developed more than 50 apps, and other companies also make some contribution in audit apps. So we can imagine that in the very near future, like there will be like hundreds or even thousands of audit apps out there. So
okay, can I make a comment?
Yes.
When we started doing this, we took a survey, and ACL supposedly has about 4,500 scripts in inventory, meaning scripts that the clients can use. In Caseware, about 1,500. And what is a script? It's a series of instructions. You typically adjust it to the data. So the beginning, you kind of pick up the data, and then the rest of it is the analytics you want to do, and maybe the output. And if you don't have the audit standard, you always need to configure each script to the data that you have. The advantage of the audit data standard is that doesn't need to be configured. Now, in theory, you could have most of those scripts transformed into an app if there was a standard available. In reality, many of those scripts are duplicative, meaning they do the same thing for different industry, or they're basically trying to do the same thing with a different formatting. There is this library of scripts. But out of 4,500, you come up with a lot of apps.
And like if there will be many apps, duplicate apps, like do for like different data, like data names. However, actually, if we use audit data standards, like if all companies are using the same data format, the same data model, so there will be one uniform audit app for like many companies. Okay. So this audit app selection system can help auditors to select the most appropriate audit app to use. And after running those apps, we get the results from all those apps and put it into the result analysis system. This system have 3 modules: the result interpretation module, the exception prioritization module, and the exception investigation module. So the result interpretation module is will explain the underlying concept or ideas of the result, because auditors do not have much knowledge or experience on interpreting those analytical results or statistical results. So this model is to help them to understand the result. And the exception prioritization module is because those apps may give, those analytics results may have many false positive instances. False positive means that, for example, if we want to detect a fraudulent account, those false positive means that those accounts are actually normal accounts, they are good accounts. But because we because of this analytics is not like perfect, so they give the results that actually detects those normal accounts as a fraudulent account. So in this big data era, those false positive is a very big problem and very big and serious problem, and it's very common in the like a big data environment. So to facilitate to find the most serious account, also serious problems, we want to prioritize those results based on the severity of those of the results. So we want to give like a scores for like each result and say, okay, this piece of results have the highest score, meaning that they are the most risky results. So we want to investigate this case, and so that's why we need this exception prioritization module. And the final module is the exception investigation module. It's actually combines the knowledge from the actual auditors, and we want to recommend the auditors what's the next step for those exceptions. Okay. And after we get the results from the after we get the results, then we the auditors want to use their professional judgment to decide whether sufficient audit evidence has been collected. If they are, so the auditors will go ahead and generate a final report. And if more evidence needs to be collected, the auditors may go back to this auditing planning stage and to use more apps or analytics technologies to generate more results. Okay. So in this picture, there are two main users. The first is the professional auditors, which is what we now call it auditors. Another type of user is a new type of auditor called armchair auditors. And those armchair auditors are actually not professional auditors. They are all those people who have interest in the government open data. And I will explain this in the following slides. I just leave it here. In my dissertation, I concentrate on design of audit planning system and the audit app selection system for the professional auditors. And I also design some apps that are suitable for the armchair auditors. So there's a contribution of this dissertation.
You just tell them what are your 3 essays, so they know.
Yes. So the first essay is to integrate audit app into current audit procedure. Actually, I design an audit planning system that embed audit app in the audit plan. And I also I developed like 2 systems. The first one is a preliminary system that actually use auditor's judgment a lot. And the second one, I improved the preliminary planning system by adding many intelligence into it. It's used like a historical audit plans. And just like, for example, if the auditors do not have idea about analytics, so what will they do? So I just use the audit plan generated in the past, and actually those audit plans are done for like a similar audit client. So we use those audit plans in the past to generate a new audit plan. And the second essay is design apps for armchair auditors. As I said, now the government is opening their data, their financial data and operational data. So as citizens, we can get access to those public data. So if we want to analyze those data, we can, so if we have interest in those data, we can analyze those data. Therefore, we want to design a specific audit apps for those government open data. And so therefore, I design apps for the armchair auditor. And first, I provide guidance to design those audit apps, and I demonstrate the use of those guidance to design apps for the Brazilian government procurement contract. And finally, I design an audit app recommendation system. So as I said, there will be like hundreds or thousands of apps out there. So what is the most appropriate app for auditor to use? So because different auditors, different clients, they need different audit apps. So that's why I created this recommender system that can provide personalized recommendations.
Do you know what a recommendation system is? Amazon. People that bought this also bought this. Okay, so Jun is going to say, people that use this app has this behavior, this experience, this gender, I don't know what the variables she's going to do, would use it in this particular condition, use this app. Is that what it is?
Yes, yes. First, I almost it's not what's the characteristic of auditors. It's the auditor's preference of audit app, and also the characteristics of audit client. So if this two client is similar, they may use different. They may use similar audit app.
So if ACL transform those 4,500 scripts in 2,000 apps, that would be one is for bank, the other one for insurance company, and they do payroll. But the contingencies are more than just area and business, correct?
Yes. Professor Helen recommended me to use risk profile as a very important way to find a similar client. So I haven't discussed with her, but I will.
I actually have a potential project for a group here. We are going to do projects in group, and potential project for a group here show an example of this life cycle. Corporate data store, data in ADS format, audit plan, drag and drop apps, draw a set of audit conclusions, and choose apps in the middle there. And this would be a project that you would kind of try to show each stage what it looked. And then you can do a movie and show it in the distribution, like Star Wars make $250 million.
Okay, so this is the topic of the essays. I don't think I have enough time to
I think you need to stop, but yeah. Can you just go one slide before that and just go again to them? It's 3 essays. Typically the dissertation might be 5 chapters, an introduction, maybe 6 chapters, literature review, 3 essays, and the conclusion. Maybe you don't do the literature review in chapter 2, you do literature review if the essays are a little bit different. Now I went to another university, and there the 3 essays could be anything, no relationship at all. And now I even saw a university that is 2 essays, nothing else. It's just 2 articles to publish. There are some universities still doing the one topic dissertation. And we have still people here doing one topic dissertations.
Like Paul. Paul is doing one.
Yeah, Paul did that. Yeah. And I think I'm going to get Paul to call in. Paul taking a job in Michigan and call in and show his dissertation.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Huh?